Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Rocket Roof Show with your host Andy Neer, and I have a special guest back today. He was on the show I think a year ago, and I wanted to bring him back to talk about enthusiastic and positive body language and tonality and talking when doing sales and presentations. And so, welcome back to the show, Paul Scelsi with AirVent.
Thank you very much, Andy. It's a pleasure to be back, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
You're welcome. And, whenever I have a down day or a bad day, or I'm going in to meet with a customer and I'm like, man, I gotta get myself in the right mood. I gotta be positive. I always think, how would Paul introduce himself? How would Paul walk into this office? How would Paul go in and shake their hand? So I'm always like, that puts me in the right mindset. And I got a couple other people that I do that too, but Paul's always the one that comes to mind. It's like, and that gets me right into that mindset, how I want to present. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. You up for it?
Thank you, and that's very kind of you, Andy, to say that. So thank you, and I'm excited about the topic. Thank you.
We would like to take just a minute to thank our sponsor, Next Level Roofer. This informative masterclass debunks the myths and exposes the lies that may be holding you back from reaching the next level. Visit 360nextlevelroofer.com to register for the next event.
You and I met probably 8 or 10 years ago at a siding training. I think it was for a certainty training on just how to do better siding sales. It was kind of, it wasn't siding. It was venting, because you do training for AirVent. And I think there was some siding going on there. But I remember you talked about how even though you're in one of the most boring subjects to talk about, which is, and you say this yourself, air attic ventilation. It's like, it really isn't a lot more boring things to talk about than that. But you always made your presentations easy to listen to, easy to be interested in, and to stay attentive. And tell me a little bit about how you started doing that, or at what point in time you realized that, hey, there's something to what I'm doing here, and I need to be enthusiastic in order to maintain my my audience's attention.
Sure, Andy. So first of all, you nailed it. Attic ventilation is not inherently very interesting. Yeah, even if you're in the industry. So, but it's important nevertheless, and I think that's a key right there, Andy. Is as the deliverer of the message, as the presenter of the message, if you can capture the key importance of it and relay that to the audience, that'll start to get their attention. Now, that's not gonna reel them in right away, but you got to at least explain the importance of it. And then I think the way you explain that importance is equally driving. So in other words, even though I explain why attic ventilation is important, and I hope I do that pretty well, I have to explain that, I believe, in an energetic manner, in a dynamic manner, to keep them engaged. So I think you boil it down to the essence of the message, and you bring some energy to that message. And I think those two things combined help.
For sure. I see some guys that are doing sales, and I know you're not specifically in sales. You do more presentations, but it's the same thing.
It's similar, yes.
It's a little bit about the art of persuasion, but are you naturally enthusiastic? Have you always been like that, or is this something you had to work on over time?
Well, if you talk to my mom, she says I've always been a bit on the energetic, outgoing side. And I'm a major morning person also, Andy, and the seminars I usually host are in the morning. So you and I right now, you're catching me on the tail end of my energy scale, but I'm still trying to give you some energy. But I think some of it is natural, and I know we're going to talk about it shortly, but some of it I have to self-manufacture for the moment, for the event, for the presentation.
Yeah.
So even if someone listening is not naturally energetic, there are things you can do to manufacture it in time for game day or showtime or whatever. And that's one of my tricks, by the way. In my mind, I call the seminar showtime. It might sound silly, but it just extra elevates the importance of the moment that I call it showtime internally.
Yeah, it makes it very important and kind of amps you up.
Yeah.
Okay. So walk me through, let's say you've got a presentation. You know it's probably one of the top 2 or 3 of the year that you're going to do. Or for me, maybe the top 2 or 3 customers or the job. And you know it's that important.
Right.
What are you doing 2 or 3 days before that meeting?
Okay, great. I love this. So, Andy, I am a stickler to be prepared. I know that probably sounds very obvious. Well,
Yeah.
of course you're going to be prepared. Of course you're going to be prepared. Well, I want to be very prepared, and that includes, I'm going to show up on time. I'm gonna know where I got to go. I know some of these things are very basic, but I'm already going to be a little bit nervous, no matter how polished of a presenter I am, no matter how comfortable I am with the content. There's a certain level of nervousness that I personally have. I don't want to compound that by running late. Where do I got to go? So I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to know where I got to go. And then in the days leading up to it, as you're an example, Andy, 2 days out, I'll pick 2 or 3 key points. I got to make sure I get this across to Andy on Friday when we meet. I don't want that to slip through. So I'll make some mental notes of key points I got to make sure I hit. So preparation, I'm not going to be running late, and make sure I highlight what I think is important for this meeting coming up.
Now, I might want to add there because I'm thinking, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about selling a roof to a customer. Let's say it's a $500,000 roof. And I know sometimes when a roofing contractor or salesman is like, okay, these are the 3 points that I got to get across. This is why I'm selling this system. Bam, 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 bam. But if it doesn't address his concerns or maybe his pain points, you're kind of wasting your time, right? Like if you're trying to sell him on a great warranty, but he's like, I really care that you're not going to disrupt my business while you're doing the job.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about how you tailor what those 3 points are to listening maybe to the customer's needs?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of the presentation is the exchange between the guest, the client, the customer on what's important. And I'd like to think that my office would have done some homework on the front end, hopefully, to learn, okay, this client ABC, it's important that we get in and out in 3 days. We can't be a major disruption or price, or you do have to uncover those pain points. And that can be part of the process of the exchange when you're meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, because I have followed up on a lead and talked to the customer, and I'll ask them a question, and then they'll be like, well, I already told your office lady, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh, well, she probably didn't really think it was that important to write it down, that I would get the memo. But, that's why I try to tell the office, like, try to write as much down in that initial conversation. Well, you might not think is important. It might be very important for the customer,
right,
for me to know that. But yeah, that's some great information. Now let's talk about how do you dress? Do you dress certain ways depending on what kind of meeting or presentation you're going into? Do you dress up or dress down?
Sure. Thank you for the question. Andy, generally, I dress the way the audience I'm speaking to is dressed. Mm-hmm. So that's primarily right now residential roofing contractors in general. So yeah. I might wear, I'll wear like a golf shirt. I'm wearing a golf shirt right now, a golf shirt and maybe a nice pair of jeans or khaki pants. But I'm not. It's not a tie. I'm not wearing a sport coat. Now I've been a guest of some organizations that were a little bit more fancy, and I will dress for that. But generally, I dress the way the audience I'm speaking to is dressed, and I think that actually helps you be better received as one of. You're on the same playing field, if that makes any sense. You're one of them.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I was talking to you before we got on the show a little bit about, let's say you have a bad day or a bad week. A couple weeks ago, I got the news that I lost a job that I've been pursuing for a couple of years now. It's right here in my local community, a customer that I've been working with for a long time. And I was pretty bitter about it for a couple of days, but now I'm like, I can chalk it up as a lesson to learn. The other company that's going to do it, they're a good company. They just outsold me. And so when somebody beats you in a fair competition, you just have to say, how can I get better so that I can win next time? But the day that you hear that news, or maybe that week you're going to have a bad week, it doesn't do anybody any good to wallow around for days or a week. What kind of different tips can you give for somebody that just they're having a bad day, they're having a bad week, to be able to not mess up those presentations? Because if you go in with a bad mood trying to pitch your next job, even though you're like, man, I just don't feel like talking to somebody, I just feel kind of grumpy, that's going to come across. So give me some tips on how to get out of that slump and still maintain positivity.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andy, you just nailed it. You don't want the audience, one person, 10 people. The audience cannot sense, man, Paul's not really into this right now. Andy doesn't seem very engaged. Here's what I do. And Andy, I battle with this. This is a real life battle for me. So as energetic as I am, and as major of a morning person as I am, which is when most of the seminars I have fall in line, I wake up in bed. Something might be happening at home that's on my mind. So here's what I do. Andy, and I mean this, I carve out time to vent, whether that means I'll talk to a buddy and get it off my chest. I'll talk to who's ever around me. This is way before the presentation, but I'll vent. Talk to a spouse, a family member. Get some of that off your chest. I'm an avid runner. You don't have to be a runner, but I'll take time to do something that lets me also exercise or go for a walk, chop wood. I'm being silly, but do something that gets some of that off your plate. And then I do this, Andy. You may not know this about me, but I actually thrive in a large audience setting for my presentations. I just feed off of the energy of a large group. Well, I give plenty of presentations to 3 people, 2 people, and I know it because you have to pre-register. So I know today it's going to be a 3-person seminar. Those people signed up. They deserve my best.
Yeah.
I struggle to give them my best. So I go for a little walk 10 minutes before it starts. This might sound a little bit out there, and I pretend, okay, the room is packed. Maybe my wife's in the audience. My mom's in the audience. Whatever you got to do to trick your mind, this is important. It's important to the people. Let's put whatever bad mood I have out there, and let's go do it. So
now, as you're talking there, I'm thinking, okay, how can this relate to a contractor selling a job? And you might be like, well, this is just a little job. It's only 20 squares, 30 squares. I'm used to doing big commercial. But you never know when that 30-square job, you do a good job, and that customer's like, I've got 3 other buildings, or I'm a partner with this other guy that has a big job. Like, you never know where that little job's going to. So I kind of trick myself into like, yeah, I'm just kind of don't really want to look at that 30-square job. I've passed them up, or I've procrastinated because I don't really, it's easier to go look at the 300-square job than it is the 20-square job. But like you said, put the importance on it and say, psych yourself up. This could be the intro to the bigger job.
Yeah. And Andy, if I may, it took a colleague to point this out to me. I was traveling with a colleague, and back-to-back days, large crowd, small crowd, very dynamic. He sensed I wasn't very dynamic the next day, and he pulled me aside. What happened? Well, 5 people. Well, those 5 people. There's 5 people, and you don't know who's in the room. Not that you're doing it for tomorrow's opportunities, but the fact is, 5 people. It only takes one person, one potential client who might word of mouth, referral, etc. So anyway, I hope that helps explain it.
And I've been in a room with contractors. They're always like, my boss made me be here, and I wish I was on a job site. I'm not really making money right now. Like, I get it.
Yeah. And Andy, you reminded me of something. I like to think I'm a pretty good read of the room, but I'm not. I've been off about the room. I've read what I believe to be someone bored out of their mind about my talk, and it was kind of throwing me off a little bit. So I focused on other people. That person ended up asking the most thoughtful questions. So although you want to read your audience, you might read them wrong. So
Right.
keep plowing through is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah. So now let's say you're having, on the flip side, like you're having a positive, enthusiastic day. You're just, you're hitting on all cylinders. After a while, you feel like, I think sometimes people feel like I'm faking it. Like, I don't want to. Do you think there's such a thing as faking enthusiasm or positivity? The fake it till you make it. But I mean, you don't want to be a fake, but is there, because I don't really, personally, I don't think there's a way you can fake it. You either are positive, enthusiastic, or you're not.
I agree. Right? I think the audience would sense non-genuine enthusiasm. It almost might come across somewhat silly to them because it needs to feel natural, and it will feel natural if it's coming from within. But you might have had to take some time to talk yourself. Okay, I got to forget about this setback. I got to forget about this problem back at the house. I got to forget about this project we lost. Today we're going after this one.
Yeah.
And so that part you're forcing, but when you're engaging in the moment, I think it's real. I really do think it's real, Andy.
I say that because I've seen people that they're not enthusiastic, they're not positive, and they go into that and they're like, they think they have to have the feeling. Like, well, I got to feel enthusiastic, I got to feel positive. But I think it's more of an action. And yes, you do the action regardless of your feeling.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
So, man, I was going somewhere with that too.
You're having a good day. You're hitting on all cylinders.
Yeah. I was going to switch gears to something else.
Okay.
Last year, you wrote a book.
Grab and hold their attention.
You got it right there? You got it there in front of you?
Yeah. Thank you. I do.
Bring it up on the screen and show it. Grab and hold your attention. And just to let you know, Paul wasn't looking to make millions off this book. It was more of a hobby. And I think you were actually persuaded by several people to write a book, right?
Yeah, the audience encouraged me to do it, in part because what you mentioned earlier, Andy, that I have a knack for taking a dry subject and making it somewhat interesting.
Yep. So it's not full of attic ventilation and stuff like that.
No. It's part crafting your message and part delivering the message dynamically.
Okay. And it's pretty easy read. It's kind of, easy for contractors to read through, I think.
I think so. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
Send me a copy.
It was a fun project.
Yep. So yeah, people can just find that on Amazon or Barnes and Nobles or.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yes. Thank you.
Yep. So
can I circle back to something that we started a little while ago?
Yeah, go ahead.
Back to one-on-one with the customer, and you want to make sure you're touching on important things. And we talked about the office giving me an update before I arrive, and maybe let's say the office wasn't as thorough as we would have liked. I could then begin. Let's say you're the customer. I'm Paul, the roofer. So Andy, I understand that for this project, it's important that we get done in 3 days. 3 days is the max. And is there anything else we should be focused on? So that kind of line of questioning might remind the customer to bring up something that you might not be thinking about. I thought about that.
Yeah, and you're reaffirming to them that you're listening and really paying attention to what's important to them.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. I know Dale Childress. He's another guy that I listen to for closing techniques, and he definitely uses that too. Like, because sometimes somebody will mention, the last time I had my roof done, they didn't clean up all the nails, or the last time I had my roof done, they did this. So you just mentioned, oh, and by the way, you mentioned that you didn't like how the nails had cleaned up. We're going to make sure that we do that. Just reaffirming that. I love that. Yep.
Yes.
I'm thinking I had something. I usually write a question down when I have a question, and I didn't think of it.
Well, I want to offer one more thing, if I could, Andy. Yep. It's about bad days and good days.
Okay.
And I'm a real big believer, Andy, that you have to take time for yourself to do something that you enjoy. We're all swamped. We got family and commitments. But, man, if you could carve out just a little bit of time, ideally per day, but definitely per week for sure.
Yeah.
Some Andy time, some Paul time. I just think that helps offset what personal challenges you might face and work challenges. So you can flip the gear, flip the switch. Today I got to be on for customer so-and-so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's helped me personally.
I was just talking to my wife about that today because, I'm lining things up for people to do training with roofing or to do roofing jobs or being on this podcast or being a speaker at the summit. Like I'm always networking with people, and it's amazing how many people are, I don't have time. I want to do a 30-minute or 1 hour podcast. I don't have time. I'll get back with you. And it's like, it's just an hour or it's just 30 minutes. And if you don't have time, I can only imagine, how is it trying to fit in a 2-day vacation with your family or trying to fit in, your kid's ball game or trying to fit in, this other stuff. And some people might say I'm not busy enough because I kind of lazy. I'm a little bit of a lazy person when I want to be. But I don't want to be so rushed that if somebody says, hey, I need to have a meeting next week, Wednesday at 11 o'clock. I'd like to be able to say, you know what? I think I can make that happen. I can move some things around. I can make it happen. And I think some people have their schedule so chock full that a golden opportunity can come across their desk and they don't have time for it. But they don't know that it's a great opportunity at that time because it's, my sister used to say, opportunities are like buses. They come by you all the time. They stop by you all the time. But if you don't jump on one, then they're gone. Yeah. And so you never know. And that opportunity could have been $1 million opportunity, but you didn't have time for it at that time, right? Because your schedule was so chock full. And so, I don't know, we got to kind of got off a little bit tangent off topic there, but
I like it.
I am an encourager of keeping your schedule open. Warren Buffett was famous for saying, I got to where I am with success because of the things I said no to, not the things I said yes to, so don't have your schedule so full of all these things that they're so busy. They're not productive. They're busy. Make sure your things are productive.
Yeah. So, Andy, I just thought of a line from John Lennon, if it's not inappropriate, but a John Lennon song, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans.
Oh, that's exactly it. I've never heard that one. John, are you sure John Lennon said that?
I'm going to go with John Lennon, but we can double check it afterward.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
We're going to fact check that. I love it. So, any passing words today for people that might be going into a big meeting this week? Maybe they're going to be pitching the biggest project they've ever had, or maybe it's a program that they're doing, or whatever it is. They've got to sound their best. They got to look their best. Any tips for somebody doing that?
I got a couple tips, Andy. I recognize and embrace nerves. I get nervous.
Yep.
But it's not a crippling nervousness. It's a nervousness that keeps me grounded, keeps me humble, makes me get prepared, and it reminds me this presentation coming up is pretty important. So my tip would be embrace the nerves and just recognize that it just means this is important to you.
Yeah.
You can do it. You can do it. My second tip would be, no matter how familiar you might be with the subject matter, the content, just refresh yourself with a couple key points.
Yep.
I believe on starting smoothly, and then where it goes from there, hopefully it stays smoothly. But
Yep.
I think it has a better chance to stay smooth if I start smooth. So I like to be prepared for my opening, whatever opening.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I want to preface that kind of. I mean, that was a great answer, but I want to preface that with I think there's a lot of guys because this is a commercial roofing show. And I think there's a lot of guys that are like, I'm comfortable talking to homeowners because I'm a homeowner, you know. So and I'm comfortable doing that. But boy, talking to a building owner with a $100,000, $200,000, $400,000 roof, whew, that's intimidating. And I think a lot of roofing contractors are like, okay, I might be a business owner, but I'm just a little business owner. Here, I'm going to go talk to this big time business owner, and I feel like I'm intimidated. I'm out of my league. I might say the wrong thing, and he's gonna figure out I don't have all my crap together, you know. And so, add a little bit to that. Like, what can a guy that's intimidated by talking to that big time building owner?
Well, as odd as this might sound, Andy, if I'm that nervous or concerned about it, I might role play with a family member prior to.
Yep.
Just a little role play. Hey, would you mind being the customer? And I'm
Yep.
Paul's Commercial Roofing. So just a little role play, just to get some practice. But secondly, and this, Andy, we got to believe in ourselves that we have the knowledge, we have the capability. Okay, I'm new, I'm small, but I'm going to grow. I'm in
Yep.
this to grow. I'm in this to be better. So believe in yourself, believe in your talents, believe in your skill set. Man, if you do it once, that's going to give you confidence for the second time.
Yep.
You do have to do it the one time.
About 8 or 9 years ago, I remember seeing a few Amish guys that were great in commercial sales, but found out they had a 9th grade education. They weren't exactly articulate with their words. They weren't exactly like fast salesy. They were kind of slow and country sounding. And I'm not putting Amish people down at all. But I'm just saying that gave me the confidence. Like, dang, I got a 12th grade education and a little bit of trade school. So I'm a little bit further along than these guys. Maybe I can do this commercial thing. And so, yeah, you don't have to be a prodigy to go out and, you know, be able to talk to building owners.
And Andy, I would add this. Let's say it doesn't go well, because it doesn't always go well. Have a little post-seminar self-assessment. Okay, what could I have done better next time?
Yep.
Make a couple notes, something that you didn't feel went as smoothly as you would have liked, and then maybe adjust for the next one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe even ask the building owner, hey, I know I lost this job. Could you tell me where we dropped the ball? Or could you tell me what part you didn't like of what we're doing, you know? Because if you generally sound like you want to get better, people will.
They'll offer you, right, yes. Yeah. And it's not easy to hear it sometimes, Andy, right?
Right.
But it's feedback constructively given, hopefully, in a way to help you be better. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, doesn't seem like it. We've been talking for about 40, 45 minutes now. So it always goes by fast when you got some good content, good conversation. So,
Thank
hey,
you.
I really appreciate you being on tonight, Paul. And once again, he didn't know I was going to do this selfless plug for him, but check out his book. Say the title again. I forgot it.
It's okay. Grab and hold their attention.
Grab and Hold Their Attention by Paul Scelsi. And so thank you so much for being on. I know you got a busy schedule, so I'll let you get back to it. And I guess I'll see you around on the next one.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andy. I enjoyed it. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.